When we're shooting them, most of us are off deer blocks, and you get used to allowing forward travel the same as you do for hares, rabbits, or anything else. But with the wallaby, you've got to allow for them going up and down as well, and that takes a bit of getting used to when you first start. The tracks are easily discernible, and that's a big help when we're snaring for them. Not that the snares can be used on all the country we work over.
Long before any Australian rugby players visited New Zealand, some other wallabies arrived in this country. They are an unusual feature of the area around the South Island town of Waimate. Introducing plants and animals to a new country was the passion of many 19th-century settlers. Trees such as oak or beech, and birds such as sparrows or blackbirds were introduced here to remind people of the old country. Sheep, cattle and horses were introduced so that the country could be farmed in a way that people from the northern hemisphere understood. Many of these introductions contributed to the nation's growth. However, other introduced animals have turned out to be more of a curse than a blessing. The wallabies of Waimate are one example. Wallabies are smaller cousins of the kangaroo. The type of wallaby found wild in the Waimate region is the Bennett's or red-necked wallaby. It was brought to Christchurch from Tasmania in 1870, with the hope of starting a fur industry. A few years later, Michael Studholm, Waimate's first European settler and the owner of a large sheep station, bought a breeding pair and set them loose in the Hunter Hills behind Waimate. They thrived in the New Zealand environment. With their little joeys in their pouch for about 275 days each year, wallabies seem like charming animals. But when they feed, they consume large quantities of grass, clover, and small shrubs. They have even developed a taste for cultivated swedes. Because they scratch at the soil to reach the roots, they cause considerable damage to the land. In Australia, wallabies are a protected species, but around Waimate, they are fair game for hunters. There are also several animal parks in Waimate where wallabies can be seen. Another Aussie import, protected in its native land but a major threat here, is the Australian brush-tail possum. Like the wallaby, the possum was introduced to encourage a fur industry. But with their voracious appetite for the leaves of native trees and their practice of spreading bovine tuberculosis to cattle, possums pose a major threat to the economy and environment. At first, hunters were paid bounties to shoot them, but possums continued to flourish. Today, New Zealand's possum population is between 50 to 70 million. They are killed by trapping, shooting, and poisoning. Ironically, a successful fur industry has finally developed, using possum fur mixed with merino wool, a good fabric for warm jerseys and scarves. A third introduced problem animal to be found around Waimate is the rabbit. But this cannot be blamed on Australia. Rabbits originally came from Spain and Portugal, and were brought in for food and sport. Rabbits found the dry, grassy plains of the South Island's east coast particularly to their liking. A single female rabbit can produce 45 offspring a year, and rabbit populations can increase by 10 in one season. By the 1880s, rabbits had reached plague proportions, causing huge damage to pastures which did not always recover. In 1999, it was estimated that production loss due to rabbits was about $50 million, despite the fact that 2 years earlier, a group of Otago farmers had illegally imported a virus to kill the rabbits. It was not successful, like a similar effort a century before, when desperate farmers brought in stoats to hunt rabbits. The stoats found native birds more to their liking, and today stoats are, after possums, the greatest threat to New Zealand's native wildlife.